Okay.
All right.
So we're just waiting for Councilman Miller. I have there we go. All right. Look at this all-star team that we have. I also want to just tell the audience as well that we have Dr. Hazel Dukes. She's on the phone with us. So Dr. Dukes, you want to just say hello?
Good morning.
All right. So we have her coming in loud and clear there. This is a wonderful opportunity, and it's just always such an honor for me. I met Jeff a couple of years ago when he participated in our in-person STEM Leadership Alliance conference. And he was so passionate about seeing that connection of STEM not just being used as an acronym, but really drawing those connections. And so that technology is not just sitting there as a tool, that engineering is being viewed as an activity, that STEM is really only happening in science, and that students get frustrated and said, why do I need to know this math? And so, Jeff, along with Dr. Dukes, really started to create and lead this charge. And I love their passion about changing education. And it's always an honor when you bring in such a thoughtful government leader, Councilman Miller here, that just understands that the way to really move this world forward is through education. And everything around us is connected. So without further ado, I'm actually going to ask each of you just to start with a brief introduction. And I'm going to start here with Dr. Dukes on the phone.
What?
In our education committee, which Jeff Hart is a member, let me extend my gratitude to you to ask us to talk about the great work that we are doing over the last 2 years and the partnerships that we have developed. I am the president of the NAACP and always have from a child. My parents, all of my family members are educators, have taught in school systems and in elementary, high school, and college. So education is a passion of mine.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. Councilman Miller, let's just hear about your background.
Well, good morning very much, and thank you for the invitation to participate, not just on the panel, but in the conference. This is so vitally important, obviously, which was highlighted by the pandemic over the past 16 months. The need for technology, the need for communities to be equitably prepared to deal with technology and its benefits, but just the day-to-day. And so for me to be able to participate is great. So in my role as a New York City council member and the co-chair of the city's Black, Latino, and Asian caucus, it's always been a goal of ours to really ensure that we had education equity and access to technology here for our young scholars here in the city of New York. And so we worked on a number of initiatives, but it wasn't until I ran into my good buddy, actually my more than good buddy, one of my mentors and lifelong friends, Jeff Hewitt here at a talent show in the district, and he began to pitch this particular program and around technology, along with the local NAACP youth leader, and it just went on, and I took it back to my colleagues in the council. And along with the Speaker of New York City Council, Corey Johnson, everybody thought it was a good idea. And so we came up with this initiative that's now been 2 years, a year in the making. It's been up and running for the past 2 years. And quite frankly, in the midst of the pandemic, when everybody was scrambling for access to technology, had we not had these laptops, tablets available with the support, there would have been thousands of students that were left out, and their educational experience, taking full participation in their educational experience due to the lack of technology. So really excited about the opportunity to be part of it, of this program, but more excited about what it has become and what it will become in the near future. So I'm looking forward to expanding not just to work here locally with the NAACP and the council. We had some offline conversations about how do we really expand it and even beyond the technology and bringing the arts back in and moving it nationally and those things there. And so we've always been about education, equity in education, and this has been a great start and means for myself and my colleagues in the council to participate.
Thank you for that. Jeff, you want to just piggyback off of that and let's start with this.
Thank you, Kelly. And again, looking back from 2019 seems like an eternity ago when we first met. And I have to say I was blown away by the participation from you at that STEM conference in Orlando. It was one of the best conferences I've ever attended here in terms of the details of what you were talking about in education and what we saw what was lacking here in a number of our schools for our students here. And so education has always been, in me, 33 and a half years in the New York City system here, teaching, also working with the teachers union here, civic activities, community activities, and making sure all of my children went to school here. My youngest son here was the valedictorian in junior high school when he graduated, 99.9. So I keep bragging about him, and he got a scholarship to one of the top private high schools here in New York City. And his favorite subject is math and science. So please don't tell me that our kids, minority kids, cannot do math and science. If you give them the tools, then we can bring it together here to take them to the next level here. And I also want to thank Dr. Hazel Dukes, our leader, our spiritual leader, our gurus. I think she has more feet, than I've seen in the caterpillar because she's all over the place doing everything for our community, our children here in terms of what we do. And my good friend, Danique Miller, who I've known for years, this brother here has been a pioneer in education for our community here. And in our program here, we insist that the parents are our partners in this program, that schools will not participate unless the parents work with us collaboratively together here. And we make sure as we do, we build partnerships to move forward here, bringing equity throughout our schools here, because it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise schools. It takes a village to raise a community. And so we look forward to continuing here this phenomenal work that we're doing here. And before I can stop, I just want to thank our phenomenal superintendents here of District 7, Dr. Rafael Alvarez, District 28, Dr. Tammy Pate, and also in District 29, Ms. Beverly Mitchell, who have been supportive of us and outstanding working with us throughout this particular journey. And we look forward to bringing more schools through our continued education. Thank you.
So I want to start with, let's just give a little bit of landscape for our participants with New York City. And I mean, one of the things that we saw very early on, especially within the pandemic, I mean, it was happening before, but there was a gap. There was a very large technology gap. And then the pandemic hit and it was like, oh no, how do we ensure that students get the devices in their hands? But then we didn't want it just to be a device. We wanted that to be a research tool. We wanted to be part of their tool belt. We wanted them to really understand it. So Jeff, I'm going to ask you to start off with maybe just doing a little bit of framing around this. And then let's just pass it on to Councilman Miller and Dr. Dukes as well. But why don't you do a little bit of framing for us?
Thank you, Kelly. What we started with, my partner and I, who's unavailable today, Frank Lieberman, we started with a program called Connect All Kids, because these children here are just ingenious in technology here. But unfortunately, many of our students in the neediest areas, not only throughout New York City, the state and the country here, do not have devices to adequately perform in schools. So our goal is trying to find resources to raise as much money as we can to not only give them the device, but also creative ways to teach them how to learn more on the device here, along with the parents and the teachers here. Giving a child a device is just, by itself is just like giving a person a car without the keys. But also you have to teach them how to properly drive. And so that was the goal as we did that. So we raised some money here for one of our key schools, PS 171 in Manhattan District 4, who we got them some devices and a particular grant, and they became one of our top schools in New York City, winning various awards for outstanding work here. We brought Dr. Dukes to that school, and her question was, why can't this school be like all of our schools be like this one here? And so that was the vision we had here of now expanding equity throughout the neediest areas of all of our students here who do not have technology and adequate training in their schools here. And there are many. We have many students in homes, in shelters. Many of the parents work 2 or 3 jobs, and they might have one device, but they have 2 or 3 or 4 children at home. So how do we find a way to bridge that gap? And so through and one evening, meeting Councilman Miller, we had this discussion while watching an arts program, and we came together saying, hey, look, we both agree, let's find a way to do this here. And I have to thank him, the digging through the bowels and the trenches of the city government, he found a way to come through to make sure we got the resources. But not only the resources, we wanted to make sure that we had phenomenal partners to help train here. And we made sure we brought in the STEM Happens Network to work with STEM in all subject areas here. We brought in also Dell Technologies with the Chromebooks and also helping us in terms of the professional development. And another one of our key partners here, NeoWorld, where we brought them in here as a new kind of anime-based digital learning device here with analytics on the platform to teach our kids here. So basically looking for creative, new, innovative ways and creating a new paradigm of creating a fun and exciting education for our students in school. But not only that, training our parents to understand what are the children doing in school, helping them at home to be able to move forward in school, and also providing the adequate training for the teachers so that it's not just dependent upon the science teacher teaching science, but we have all of the teachers now working on all of subject areas throughout the learning process in their schools.
Let me add that one part that Jeff left out that was also key. In the urban areas, as you said, Kelly, the COVID-19 just opened it up wide. We already do that. That's why NAACP since 1975 really has gone into schools. Our former borough president of Manhattan, C. Virginia Fields, came in during her tenure and gave support to programs that we were working in. Jeff did hit on our children in foster care and in shelters, but we don't have all of my internet service is out a storm on Saturdays. Spectrum is in my home now, working on it. They didn't even have it. They couldn't afford it. The governor asked our carrier Spectrum and Verizon to give every home internet service for $15 a month. As Jeff said, parents who are just working 2 or 3 jobs for rent and food can't afford this. And so our advocacy in this work with our city council people shared all the inequities that keep our children from receiving and being able to proceed in learning. And so COVID really, in 2 ways, it was a disservice for remote learning for our children, but it opened up all of the inequities that consist in our urban areas with our children not having all the resources. Equity, you don't find it in our suburban areas. You don't find it in Scarsdale and in Westchester. But in all our areas where we have high concentration on Black and brown kids, that's where it is. In Nassau County, which is a wealthy county, you wouldn't think that we had school districts such as Roosevelt and Hempstead that we were working with that have the same problems that New York City. So in COVID, it unearthed all of the problems where we have Black and brown and poor families living, and their children have the right and can succeed. We have children who step on the subway for years to get into Harvard when I was with the UFT on their education advisory. So if you have the tools and the professionals, working together as we have put our program together, you see success. You see the opportunity. You see the yearning from learning from our children.
Thank you for that. Councilman Miller, one question that has come up is just how do schools work with government? How do they form this relationship? I mean, you see the needs, but what if you're dealing with a government that's not seeing those needs? Oh, you're on mute.
Yep. So that is very interesting in that. Look, here in my district and in the southeast in southeast Queens area, we say it's the teamwork that makes the dream work, right? And you have to be on the ground, and you have to talk to neighbors that are educators and administrators and all of our young scholars, and really be a part of it, right? We have a education liaison in my office here that is involved with local CCs and PTAs and just all of the educational happenings that happen not just in the district but throughout the city. We recognize that this is paramount. The experience of our young scholars is paramount, not just to them and their families, but to the futures of our community, because these are our young leaders. And so. But from a council perspective, and as I mentioned in the opening, the Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus paid particular attention to the education of our young scholars, and particularly as it relates to inequity in resources and technology, and so where there's a will, there's a way, and we really at some point for me, being elected is being the point guard, is being the facilitator, right? Just reaching out to the people that have the skills and making sure that they get the ball in the right place to score. And when you have great organizations like the NAACP, Jeff and his team, and so many others out there that you have real relationships with, they do the work, and that sometimes is the biggest role of government. That people oversee when you're calling our office is these great community-based organizations and community partners that we're picking up the phone and calling to make sure that things happen. But our goal is to make sure that they get funded, that they have the resources to really perform the tasks that they've been charged with. And when you spend your life organizing as an organizer and just working with the various groups throughout the city, you know who they are and you know where to pass that ball off to, in that moment. And for me, having the support of my speaker, support of the other members of the caucus and the council, it's been a seamless task. Now, navigating the minutiae of government, getting these resources to the right place, it has been a monumental task and continues to be that, and something that we continue to work on. But the will to do the right thing has always been there. The partnership has always been there. Working with Dr. Dukes and her team is it's just seamless, right? And at so many different levels. And so we're doing this, but at the same time recognizing that there's so much work that has to be done to enhance the experiences of our young people, and using this technology. The caucus has in this latest budget just provided tens of millions of dollars to create a curriculum of inclusion, equity of inclusion, Black, Asian, and Latino and Asian studies. That utilizing this same technology is really going to expand education in New York City and around New York State significantly in the future. So we're excited about that, but more excited about the opportunity to participate with these great partners as we strive to really enhance the educational experience of our young people. And the young people participating are really the difference makers, right? They're not just sitting around waiting for us to figure out what next steps are. They are participating at every level. One of the things that I found most exciting, PS 116, which was our initial group with this pocket of funding. We look at into communities where there's the highest need. And someone said initially, the easy thing was, Councilman, you just take the money and in your district, and I'm like, no, we have some schools sometimes in the district that have more access to technology or laptops or tablets than students, right? But you have others that have greater need. There are places in the South Bronx and East New York, Brooklyn, and other places that we identified that had a much greater need, and we did that. But I had the pleasure of last month going to a graduation at PS 16, which was the first one in my district to participate in this program. And the salutatorian, valedictorian, each were English second language students. Their parents were English second language students. And it was this program and the technology that really helped propel them to the level of valedictorian and salutatorian. And we know that it works. Again, you have to have the will and be on the ground to really understand what these needs are and how you address these needs, right? And how we just kind of change the paradigm around equity and even within those communities of color, right? And just like sometimes it's just not enough to to look at the math and you got 100 schools and everybody gets 10, not really how it works, right? Or everybody gets one. And, we have to go where the need is greatest and make sure that they are being served. And when you have great partners and people that are willing to do the work and you create a good team around you, it makes it easy, it makes it seamless. So for me, being a part of this team is not just an honor, it's really, as Shirley Chisholm would say, it is our rent that we pay for living on this great planet, and it's service, right? And this is the service. But the next level is expanding it to organizations and being a part of national STEM, and as the work that you're doing, Kelly, and we're really excited about that. So it's just been an honor and a great experience to participate, and seeing the best thing is watching the plan come together, watching this from realistically a conversation at a talent show, right? One night to being able to raise millions of dollars, provide technology, provide training, provide professional development, and see this thing really come to fruition is a beautiful thing. So thank you.
Thank you for that. What I really appreciate is this whole comment on collaboration, because anytime, it's never one individual, it's never one organization. It's really when there's true collaboration, is that when we get to see that change. And I think that's what, the STEM Leadership Alliance is all about. It's about building a collaborative culture. It's making sure that everybody is at the table, everybody has a voice, and that, we continue to work together. And when I look at the work that you're all doing here, and I'm an honor to be a part of that as well. But I think that's the key, and the difference is that you're not just saying, hey, we're just going to work with the educators, or hey, we're just going to work with students, we're just going to give these devices. No, we're building the capacity of the teachers. We're building the capacity of the administrators. We're making sure that parents are involved, the community is involved. I mean, one of the things we always say is that anybody who is around that school building needs to know what's happening inside that school building. They need to understand, what are the needs, what are the challenges, how can I work, how can I support them? So I'd love for, Jeff and for Dr. Dukes to kind of move this forward a little bit. Let's talk about, how do we get that willingness? How do we bring everybody on board? And talk a little bit just about what are the goals and what are we seeing so far? So maybe I'll start with you, Dr. Dukes.
Let me say that, again, thanks to Councilman Miller, we have people in our communities that what they need is someone to be transparent about the education system. As Jeff will tell you, some of our parents, while they have a desire to see that their children are educated, stay away from the institutions because they're not welcome there. And so our partnership is to select, as Jeff told you, we do not go into any school that is not open to the package that we present. And Frank Lieberman, who is not here, he's working at a state level. We are going out to foundations, showing how this program works and what can happen. We have data now to substantiate what we've done and the goals that we set, how the goals and objectives are being met. We've met with the now Chancellor, the former Chancellor of the City of New York. We have a new Chancellor. We have met with her, and we explained to her what we are doing. She come out of Bronx, where we are in a school there, and so I think transparent and saying here data that we can show, bring in more partners with us. Most schools, people are reaching out to us now, saying, "Hey, I hear that the NAACP is doing this work. We'd like to be included." And so when we go into different districts, we have our Jamaica branch talking to her borough president to expand further in the Queens borough than where Councilman Miller has done for us. We met with a incoming council member, a new council member, as you know. Council member Miller with our system is we call termed out. They only can serve for so many years. We have that term limited, which is crazy. But here, we won't get into that discussion now. But we've reached out to new members that will be going into the city council with some who have been protege and Councilman Miller has mentored will be there. And so we are already beginning to talk with them and invite them to our schools to see what we are doing. So you continue to build on your work. And as I said, transparency, we have our data, we have our schools that is open, we have workshops that is open, so people really see it's not just some paper being pushed. They hear from the parents. The parents express their appreciation and what is that they need and what they should be having in their schools. And so those are the partnerships that we have built. And our goal is to expand this work through as many the districts that we can in the city, not just depending on the city funds, but as I said, we have a team under Frank Lieberman working with sending material out to foundations, and we've also spoken to several corporations. We presented our plans and our objectives to them. And so we believe that we have a good product. We believe that it is needed in our school systems. And so we're going to continue to work very hard with the systems that we have in place. We love it because Councilman Miller is not going anywhere. He's a resident of Queens. He's a member of the NAACP, and so his voice carries weight. He's respected in our system and in our boroughs, not just in Queens, as he said. He has colleagues in all 5 boroughs, and he's respected there. And so this builds on the partnerships that we have developed and ones that we are developing.
Well, thank you for that. This is really leading into some really thoughtful questions here. So I want to just kind of jump into some of this here. And I want to first start off with Jeff, directing towards you, and it's kind of towards us, I guess. But how does this initiative support students in meeting the new science and math standards? Is the curriculum that the initiative is aligned with? Are we providing the curriculum? So why don't you talk a little bit about that? And I can chime in too if you want.
That'd be great. We actually, what we do is initially, when we meet first with the superintendent, we want to hear the superintendent's vision with their respective schools in their district. What are they looking to do? What were the issues they've been having here? Where do they want to take them? What are their goals? Then we meet with the principals to determine what's happening in their schools, and we make sure we ask the superintendents, allow your principals to be open and honest with us so we can help them here. Whatever their curriculum is in science, I will not say any names, so we won't get down in terms of whatever the curriculum is, then our partners, the STEM Happens Networks, works with the school to devise a professional development plan that will help them. What I like about that is that you build team leaders within those respective schools, meaning that you might have the science person on here, a technology person on here, a math person on here, but there also must be a parent representative on that team as well. Then we build the partnerships together of training them throughout the course of the year as they continue here. This is a 3-year program in our schools. So we're not just with these schools for 1 year. It is building the capacity within the schools so that those on the team can also start training the other participants in their school and the parent community, so it becomes a wholesome environment of educational learning within their respective schools moving forward here. And I'll let you speak on how you develop and work on those teams here. We've had great success in terms of what they do, especially in the notebooking, which we've been finding out that has been a phenomenal resource for our students.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I think the most important thing is that oftentimes companies and outside individuals think, well, if we just give schools the curriculum, that's the magic tool. And that's not the truth. It's really about building the capacity of the educator. And so the work that we believe in is the fact that it's really using whatever existing tools and resources a school has. Let's just do an investigation. Let's do our analysis to say, okay, here's everything that you have. And I always like to use the Swiss cheese approach. I like to think of it, okay, we have holes here. We have gaps that we need to fill. Then we go back and we figure out how do we build the capacity of the educator and the administrator in order to fill those gaps, and maybe bringing in the community, bringing in local partners, bringing in other folks that have that expertise to help with that. And then that's really how you start to move it. And that's when that magic of learning happens for students, because all of a sudden they're not looking at STEM happening only in science, but they're connecting it to the real world. And the other part too, on the curriculum side, oftentimes it's translation. It's about how do you make it culturally relevant for students in their own community. I won't name this particular vendor here, but when they talked about erosion, they're talking about a place in New Zealand. And so for kids that are in the Bronx or in any place in New York, they're probably going, New Zealand, where's that? And then you mention Christchurch, and they're like, well, now we're talking about religion. And so they just miss the whole point where they're talking about erosion. And instead, it needs to be brought home local. It needs to be, hey, when you're walking and there's a major rainstorm, we just had one in New York. And so when you have that, what's happening to the ground, the running water, that's an experience where we can make it relevant so students can really start to think about their own community. So that's the real goal of what the work is trying to do, is to transform it where teachers, we build their capacity, we build the capacity of the school, and we're able to move it forward. I love this next question. We have someone that is from Malawi, and they're coming up with an initiative where they are identifying vulnerable youth from poor communities, and they're asking companies and organizations to help these kids. So what are some of the challenges that this individual will face, and how do they overcome it? How do they continue to persevere? So I'm going to start that question with Councilman Miller, and then I'm going to pass it over to you, Dr. Dukes, and then to you, Jeff.
Well, again, we go back to the teamwork makes the dream work, and building coalitions are important. But you don't you also don't, from a leadership perspective and otherwise, you don't develop and cultivate relationships in moments of crises, right? These relationships have to already exist when there's nothing happening, right? And so at that point, you are a valued partner, and you're reaching out to the partners that could help you in whatever experiences that's happening now. In the case of, being able to garner the type of resources necessary to support these young folks, is that's your first step, is to work on your community partners and develop those relationships in advance of this work, right? Because after this work in the broader service, there's going to be something else. But it's also the relationships that not that relationship should be reciprocal, but what are you bringing to the table, right? And what are you just giving when you're not needing? And I think that's just really important, that that you build these networks of like-minded folks that just want to serve, and find a way for them to serve and to assist. And so I think that's where it starts, right? Where you're just in the room talking about the work, and the work is so expansive, but identifying the resources that are available to you, and then cultivating those resources and developing those relationships, and they're ready to just hit the ground running in a situation like this. So I would say that just identify those who can help in this situation, work on those relationships, and go to them and ask them. And this is a crisis moment. Our children are in crisis mode, particularly with the lack of access to technology. So that has to happen now. And if you don't have time to develop and cultivate that relationship, identify those individuals within your community that can be supportive. Put on the ask, and then work on the relationship afterwards, right? But relationships are important, but you have to identify those local folks that are real stakeholders, right? And be able to identify why participating in a program such as this, supporting these young scholars, is going to enhance their position, and articulate that to them, bring them into the network. And it's so that's the short term, identifying those individuals and go out and really expressing. And quite frankly, sometimes it's having the children and teachers and administrators tell the story as well, because no one tells your story like you, right? Can't hire lobbyists or someone to tell your story and that it's going to connect in that way. That's how you get them in the door, right? But once you get them in the door, these are long-term relationships. These aren't short-term, like this is what we need at the moment. These are lifetime relationships, because this is a lifetime of work that has to happen.
Kelly, I see one of our outstanding superintendents on the line from District 29, Ms. Beverly Mitchell. Is there a way we can...
Let me just, Jeff, before we go in, to say to the persons, I don't know whether they know the NAACP or not, the attendees. We are a 112-year-old civil and human rights organization. So just the name of the NAACP, in any communities, we have 2,200 branches across this nation. We are in every nook and crook, and I have 59 branches in New York City, in New York State, from Niagara Falls to Eastern Long Island. And so our advocacy work makes us known. NAACP in its history, education, from Brown versus Board, from Thurgood Marshall, his work with the NAACP before he went to the Supreme Court. So we are known. The name NAACP in every courtroom, in every legislative hall, in every governor's mansion, that name is known. And so when you walk in the room, you walk in already with a name recognition, with transparency, and what you have done in the field of education, in the field of employment, the field of education. So that give us, in with the name NAACP, a leg up, that people don't have to question who you are, what have you done lately, or what have you done. 112 years is a long time. And so that's what I bring to the table when I walk into to the mayor's office, to the speaker's office, to the legislators, when I testify, when I meet with the chancellors and with superintendents in school districts. So you have to have a foundation. You just can't say, "Oh, we want to help these poor kids." You have to have a foundation, a track record of what have you done, where have you been in this setting, in this space. And so when you look at New York State in this space, I and the New York State NAACP has been in this space way before COVID-19. We've been in this space because of our black and brown children not receiving the resources. So it's not just whether you're Republican or Democrat or liberal or green. We don't care. Our goal is to see by the Constitution that every child, regardless of where they live, who's the parents, what's their zip code, quality and equity resources for education. So we just didn't start this in COVID-19. This state conference is 87 years old. So we've been ringing the bell. We've been out saying to people, our children are not receiving the resources. We were in a suit for 15 years. A man who was in the city council, who's now in our assembly, was a parent. Senator Robert Jackson, who walked from New York City to Albany.
Campaign for citizens, that's correct.
And NAACP joined him. We joined the suit. So this is a long process. The struggle continues. When the resources, we go to budget meetings, we look at the state budget to see what they put in for education. Jeff and I we've been on the phone with the chancellor and the commissioner of the New York State Education Department. You have to be known. You have to have a foundation. You have to have a record. We have parents who speak. Yes, the NAACP is here for our children, not for political purpose. And so that's the goal that you have to set. You have to have, whoever asked the question, you have to have some track record. Just saying, we're going to help these poor children. We have a lot of people want to help the poor children.
That's right.
They want to help them on Thursday, but they don't want to help them on Monday. So you have to be consistent, and that's what we bring to the table. Before we had any money, before we received any, we have volunteers. My education component is made up of volunteers, superintendents, retired teachers, present teachers in the classroom now, union leaders. So you bring all that mix together.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so important, is that you bring all of these people together. Yeah, exactly.
All stakeholders.
Exactly.
Don't leave anyone out.
That's right. That's right.
Even
and then
with
be
that
consistent.
Difference.
Exactly.
You don't leave them out.
That's right.
You don't leave them out. You bring them to the table. We've had, because you have Republican governors, you have Democratic governors, you have Republican mayors, Democratic mayors. I fought with Eddie Koch. I fought with Mayor Blumberg when he wanted to dismantle public education and make everything charter schools. Mm-hmm. We've been there. We brought lawsuits.
Yep.
So we have a foundation in this work.
That's right. It's perseverance and fighting for what's right there.
Absolutely.
So, Jeff, you had also, I just want to thank you, Dr. Dukes. I appreciate both your passion. I appreciate Councilman Miller's passion on this because I think it's really how to move this forward. Jeff, I think that Superintendent Mitchell, was she going to dial in?
I'm waiting for her. I sent her the email, so hopefully she can dial in.
Yeah, so she calls in, I can merge her in because I'd love to give her a few more minutes too on the floor there because she's really, leading this work within her district there.
Yeah.
And she's done an amazing job. So I'd love to be able to give her that opportunity to share some of those thoughts.
And if we don't she said she called in, so hopefully she'll get through. We'll see.
So I hope that I have answered as many questions as that was in the chat. And I want to again express our gratitude on behalf of the Education Committee and Jeff and Councilman Miller for giving us this opportunity to further spread the word as we are ambassadors in this work. At the present time, the NAACP is having its 112th national convention virtual. This is our second time of doing this. We hope that it's over, but I must get on a workshop in the next 5 minutes.
All right.
So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Dukes. It's always a pleasure. All right. Okay, bye.
So good to get on with you.
Jeff, I just thought, since we don't have Beverly, but what I am going to do is just do a pre-recording with her, and then I'll be able to add it in as we post this onto our website. Could you just share a little bit about the work that the superintendent there is leading there in District 29?
Oh, wow. The word I described for her is a rock star. She is committed, dedicated to the community, to the children, to all of her scholars, to the parents, to the teachers, and to her administrators. Working with her has been one of the most enjoyable experiences of my years in education here. She listens to ideas, concerns. We've never had no disagreements. We work collaboratively together here. She has a vision for her students here, for her scholars. And sitting down with our team, specifically the STEM Happens Network and NeoWorld and also Dell Technologies, I think we put together an exciting package for her teachers and parents where they have been moving forward here and building new scholars and leaders in their school of advancing the STEM, taking the next generation science standards, which is coming out in September, to be prepared for that. But not only just prepared in science, but also in math and all other subject areas as well here. When you hear her speak in terms of her vision of what she wants for her scholars and her community here, she's straight to the point, gives you concise ideas and concerns, and we try to address them here. I know she has a phenomenal relationship with the Councilman Miller. I met her at the first time, and I also commend Councilman Miller because he meets with his principals monthly to hear their concerns within the district here, goes to the school. So this is not an individual who just speaks the talk, but he also walks the walk. And as we've heard here, our team in the villages here, they're in the trenches here. As I like to say, our people dive into the pool to help our kids learn how to swim and become even expert swimmers and scholars.
Thank you for that, Jeff. So I'm just in final comments here. Councilman Miller, just kind of final thoughts, words to share.
So I'm excited about the program. I'm glad that we are mentioning Principal Mitchell. I'm sorry, Superintendent Mitchell and actually Dr. Pate, who came on later on in District 28 as well, from that I represent. But as Dr. Duke said, this partnership is really important. The work that you guys are doing is really important. Not just honored to be a part of it, but I think what we're doing here is certainly the template for communities throughout the city, throughout the state, and throughout the nation, right? Building coalitions on behalf of our young scholars, but also making sure that we collectively are bringing in resources that work, right? And identifying what works and building up capacity of parents and though everybody who's participating. As Dr. Duke said, many have the passion to serve, but don't necessarily have the capacity and the ability to serve. So we want to make sure that everyone is built up and able to serve our young scholars as best as possible. So looking forward to working with you and your team, continue to work with Dr. Dukes and Jeff and his team and Frank and the rest of the team to do the work on behalf of our young scholars. And we are here and available to work with each and every one of you guys. And as I said, hopefully this is the template for how we service our young people throughout the city. We have a great new chancellor and a great team that we're all talking. And if we're not talking, we're not fixing. And so we, as Dr. Duke said, this is a very transparent conversation, and public policy happens by virtue of public discourse. Let's keep up the discourse. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. And I really want to thank both Councilman Miller and Dr. Dukes and Jeff, just really for your leadership. And it's not that you're even what you're doing just in New York City here, but the inspiration that it is for globally. We have countries from all over the world that are participating in this summit here. And it's just an inspiration for them to hear how you're doing this in New York City, because oftentimes people think, wow, New York City, you can do it there. It's like the song, you can do it there, you can do it anywhere, right? And so that's what we're really trying to leverage there. So it's really is an honor and a privilege. So thank you. Jeff, I'm going to allow you just to provide any closing comments and thoughts there.
No, I just, again, want to thank all the participants coming out here. Unfortunately, we couldn't be down in Orlando to enjoy it, but hopefully next year, everybody will be there, happy, healthy, and all of our participants here. But thank you for participating. For our team members, Dr. Dukes, for her great work, Councilman Danique Miller here. We thank you so much. And again, for our phenomenal superintendents, Ms. Mitchell, Dr. Pate, and as well, Mr. Alvarez, we thank you here. And our team members from the STEM Happens Network here, Near World and Dell Technologies, great work, great team. And we cannot wait to start again for September. So we're definitely looking forward to moving forward. But thank you guys so much.
Well, great. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate this. And again, next year, July 11th to the 15th, 2022, back to Orlando, Florida. And so right now, we're going to end the conversation here. And we now have an opportunity to network. So if everyone sees on their left-hand side of their screen, there is a button for networking. If you click that, you can go to various tables, but also visit the booths. The booths is an opportunity to learn more about the work that these organizations are doing here, that you've been seeing kind of going down on your right-hand side of your screen there. You're able to see who our partners are. So visit them, sign in. They also have a lot of resources and materials that are available. So you can fill out a note card and just kind of leave your name and information. So we're going to do that. And then at 12:20 Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to ask everyone to actually come back at 12:15 Eastern Standard Time, because we're going to hear from Stephen Pruitt. And Stephen Pruitt is the executive director of the Southern Regional Education Board, but he's also was the architect of the Next Generation Science Standards. But he has a lot of information related to STEM since the pandemic. So I encourage everyone to come back for that. We have a great afternoon lineup. So without further ado, let's jump over and visit some booths and let's check out some network opportunities. And we'll see you all back shortly. Thank you.